Hi, gang. Welcome to Behind the Rhinestones. My name is Dinah Dare, and I am your host for this interview where I talk to some of the leading artists in cabaret and burlesque in the UK. Please do like and subscribe if you are enjoying our various different interviews. I have so many more to come. And today I'm going to be speaking to a fellow Glasgow performer who's been doing this for 2 years now. So please welcome to the show, Genevieve Strips. You know.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Genevieve.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm really happy to be here. Aye,
Yeah.
really happy to be here. Yay.
I'm loving your leopard prints in the background. They are like a vibe.
Do you know, mate, they cost me 2.99 at the range.
I mean, that's an absolute bargain.
I was like, it's... like, yeah,
They're
aye.
they're they're so perfectly burlesque.
Yes. Yeah, they're just watch over me at night. Just watch over me at night and they were cheap. And I'm Tam
I
Mullen
mean,
cheap.
yeah, like that's all you
Like,
care about.
that's all I get about.
That's such a good response. Like, do you know that way where you ask someone like, "Oh my God, I love your dress," and they're like, "Oh my God, it was like 10.99 from here." That was what that was.
I swear down, like, see if you ask me about anything I'm wearing, usually I'll be like, mate, I got it at a charity shop. Like,
Yeah.
or
You're
I
like, "Oh my
stole
God,
it
it was
off
so
my
cheap."
sister.
This was. I'm like, this was from Vinted and cost me £5.
Aye, do you like it? So I feel so sexy. It cost me 3 quids.
That's what makes it even sexier, though.
That makes it sexier, but do you know what I mean?
It
Makes it
does.
sexier.
It
Like, I'm no
does.
contributing to capitalism and my bank balance looks better. Do you know what I mean?
There's nothing sexier, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In
Except
doing
maybe
this,
burlesque.
you've got to make the pennies
You
count. You know what
do.
I mean? Like,
You really
they've
do.
got to count. So yeah.
Especially because like you've obviously we'll chat about how you got into
Yeah,
burlesque, but I suppose it's probably worth us at the top acknowledging that you are a mother and a grandmother as well.
I am.
Like,
I am.
so,
Mammy and granny.
yeah.
Mammy and granny.
So
Aye.
yeah, the pennies have got to stretch because I imagine you've got
Yeah, so
that's all
I've got
that's a
five
brood.
of my own and two grandchildren. So yeah. Everything in my
That's
life
a
is to stretch,
yeah.
you know.
That's a brood.
Aye, it's aye. It is a brute. It's aye. It's one of the ones when people go, what if you no get a telly? Oh,
Well, you're
but
just
no,
enjoying yourself. Like,
eh? I don't
you're
well
just
exactly,
enjoying
do you know
yourself.
what I mean? Exactly. Saving electricity to turn the telly off. You know what I mean?
I mean, you need to when you've got five, babe. That's that's a juggle. Like, how
Yeah.
do you? Obviously, I just saw you've been performing now for 2 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Happy early
Thank
birthday.
you. Thank
How
you.
do you juggle the late night performing life with the fact that you have so much else going on?
To be honest, that's been a bit of a journey for me.
Okay.
Like it took me a long time to kind of find a rhythm with it because when I first started performing, so like for the first year, I only performed within student settings, like so within student showcase. So I
Hmm.
debuted in Riding Room, but as a student. Um, and so it's been a massive kind of journey trying to figure that out because when I first got into burlesque, it was I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited, and I couldn't wait and I was spending all my money, do you know what I mean, on
Hmm.
everything, like and trying to make these costumes look the best that I could. And I look at them now and I'm like, oh, it's horrific, and I didn't balance my time well at all between performing, between rehearsing, costume making, my children and all my responsibilities at home that have to come first. So I think now what I do is I kind of look at my diary very carefully and I'm a lot more selective now with what I choose to do. So actually at the beginning of the year, me and Baby Heart decided that our New Year's resolution was going to be that we were only going to apply to shows and perform at shows that brought us joy, and where, we knew that the atmosphere was going to be safe and welcoming and nurturing for us, as well as for the other performers and for the audience as well. So now I am more selective about that. I usually, in terms of like actual show day, depending on what the plans are, I usually get it ready quite early and then spray the shit out my face with setting spray so that so that I can kind of go about my day, do pickups, do anything I need to do, school drop-offs, appointments, clubs, that kind of thing, and then I'm kind of ready to go. So it's mainly, I suppose, organisational, which is a struggle for me because I'm like the least organised person on the planet. I think a lot of people that know me would probably say that I'm not, that I'm very organised and I'm usually quite on the ball, but that's because I really force myself. Because if I don't, I'm extremely scatty, so
You
it's,
basically have to like project plan your life.
yes, yeah, essentially, yeah. So I love stationery and I love diaries, and for years I had about 1 million diaries like that thick, and I'd be writing, but I forget all my appointments because I wouldn't look at them. I just liked
Mm.
writing in them because I liked new stationery. So now I
Yeah.
kind of I use my phone and I set reminders, reminders for shows, reminders for clubs, appointments, all the kind of different things that it entails. Reminders and things for my husband and what my husband's get planned as well, because childcare is then an issue as well. So I suppose, yeah, planning is the biggest kind of takeaway for me, is that I need to be more on the ball with that. And I think I'm doing not bad with that so far. But I think nights, especially school nights, if I'm performing a school night, like if it's usually like a Monday or a Thursday or something like that, that can be quite hard because you're getting home late. So it's organising everything you need for the next day before even getting ready to go out, as it were.
Yeah.
But I suppose I think
Um,
it's also important for people, maybe people who are coming into this new, like brand newly, and are coming in as parents or guardians, or in any kind of caring capacity, is, to give yourself a bit of grace, and that you're going to fuck up and that's all right. Do you know what I mean? Like,
like all of us, I know I definitely did it. I think when you find burlesque, all of us get a little bit obsessed.
oh yeah,
And
for sure, for sure.
oh yeah, we throw ourselves into it.
Yeah,
Exactly what you said. Like it becomes everything. You throw money at it that you don't necessarily
yeah,
have. You
yep.
make costumes that a year later you're like, "Ugh."
Aye,
You and it can dominate, and you do need to eventually find that balance. And
absolutely.
I talk about finding balance a lot because it changes for me as to what
Yeah,
dominates my life depending on what else is happening.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so finding that, and the thing is, I can kind of have peaks and troughs because I don't have the caring responsibilities that you have. Like
Yeah,
my troughs come from when like work has taken over my life or
yeah,
there's like I'm not well or whatever. Whereas
absolutely.
you have a constant of your family.
Absolutely, but that's still relative for you. So even though you're like, well, you've got a constant thing, those peaks and troughs for you are just as relevant and just as what's the word? Just as important
Hmm.
as mine are, do you know what I mean? Because it's about, that's what's relevant and important to you, do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, I think I might get called out for this. A lot of parents, and I don't mean in the burlesque scene, I just mean in general, that I've met throughout my life, they're they're very harsh on other parents, they're very harsh on people who don't have children, because they're like, oh, you don't have children, so you don't understand, how difficult my life is at the moment, or how difficult, and that's fine, because, and they might not, that person might not, if they don't have children, but it doesn't mean to say that that person's not experiencing issues or traumas or struggles that are just as big and just as real to them. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think it's important that, as not just as parents, but as people, like, that we hold space for people to have those issues, and not be like, yes, well, do you know what? I've got this going on in my life, therefore my problems are bigger than yours. because it's no competition. We've all got problems. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's not. But in the same breath, I think it's important to note that although you do have kids and a lot of caring responsibilities,
Yeah,
you are still perfectly capable of doing this. You can still do burlesque. You can still be part of
yeah.
this world. And I wonder
Oh,
if,
absolutely.
like, did you wonder it? I suppose this is probably getting round to the question of how did you get into burlesque? Did you wonder if you could do it with the caring responsibilities that you have?
It wasn't so much if that I wondered if I could do it with the care and responsibilities. It was actually more, I don't know if you need to cut this. It was because I don't know if it's maybe a bit of a trigger warning. For me, it was a body thing.
Okay.
So for me, it was a body thing because obviously I have had children. And how to put it into context. So when I was a teenager, which was quite a while ago, I was a very big fan of a certain musician who was married to a certain burlesque dancer or performer. Very big fan.
Yep.
And the minute I seen her, and her whole aesthetic, not even so much the performance, but just her look and her lifestyle, I was like, oh my God, I need this.
Mm.
And but I became a mum at 17. So I very quickly, all of that fell away from my life because I was so focused on being a mum, but I was also a mum that had health problems. So that encapsulated my entire life right up until I turned 37. And when I realised that there was a local scene, totally late to the party, like, do you know what I mean? And I got tickets for Valentine's in Polo Lounge.
Yep.
And me and my hubby went to see that because we were like, we hadn't had a night out like together for I couldn't even tell you how long. And we
Mm.
managed to organise a babysitter. Like it was a pure miracle. And we went and we saw it, and it was Misbehave and Debbie Deluxe that
Yep.
were co-producing and performing. And so me and Debbie ran in kind of similar circles when we were younger. We didn't necessarily know each other, type thing. But I was like, oh my God, it's Debbie. Do you know what I mean? Like, wow. And then I saw that Misbehave was running classes. And after it, I was like, I need to do this. I need to do this. So I shot her a message and I went along to her class, and we were sitting in Dell's and we were talking away, and I remember, and I'm actually like, mortified that I even asked the question now, but at the time it was relevant for me. And I remember asking her, can't even believe I'm going to say this, but it's important. I remember asking her, do I have the right body for burlesque? And like it was a pure education it was such an education for me. Um, and she was like, I can't even believe you've just asked me that. And I was like, I couldn't understand why she couldn't believe it. Do you know what I mean? I was like, and that was essentially the start of it for me. And she's like, Misbehave, she's my sister for a different mister, so like we're really close. And that essentially was like the birth of burlesque for me, but it was also the birth of our friendship as well. So aye, that's kind of how I got into it. And ever since my first like performance, my first student showcase, I was just like, I have to do this. This can't be something that I do at once and leave behind. Do you know what I mean? Like it gave me something, you know?
When it's meant for you. Um, I was the same. Like the first time I started performing, I was like, "Oh, this is it.
Yeah,
This is the thing."
yeah.
Um,
It's yeah.
if you don't, if you're comfortable talking about it, are you more comfortable with your body now that you have been performing?
I have peaks and troughs with that. At
Fair.
the very beginning, yes, it did. At the very beginning, I felt like I was falling in love with my body again. At the very beginning, I felt like my body belonged to me again
Hmm.
because before I was very, everything's, about my children. And I took a kind of stint in 2014, 2015, and I went to college. And then I fell pregnant again and had my daughter, who has some additional needs. So her care was quite intensive at times, especially when she was younger. So I felt like my body belonged to me again, because when you've got young children, you'll know yourself from seeing people, like family members or whatnot, like your body is a climbing frame, you know, and I don't know how to articulate this.
Take your time. There's no stress. But also, if you
Yeah,
can't, that's okay.
it's not that they take over, you know, your body as such, but they take over your being,
Yeah.
because they need so much from you, and you almost lose the part of yourself that's you, and
Hmm.
you stop being Jen, and you're constantly mum, and I'm very lucky, as the past kind of couple of years have went on, that my daughter's health has drastically improved, and
Good.
that although she still has challenges, she is far more capable than we ever thought she might be. So and she's a very clever wee cookie, so and she's got an understanding now, I think, as well. Like I try to teach all my children that personhoods and autonomy is extremely important. But I think again, that's something else that burlesque has given me, is the ability to own my own personhood and my own autonomy, if that makes sense.
I can
Excuse me.
I can totally see that. I think you said you had kids at your first kid at 17. Like, and I can imagine we're barely functioning at 17 as people. Like, we don't know who we are. So
No, not a clue.
I can totally see how you became mum and
Yeah,
then trying to find who you are, and
yeah,
that sort of confine of that, I can imagine was
absolutely.
difficult. And it's really interesting to hear that burlesque has given you an avenue to find that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's been a journey. It's been a journey. Do you know what I mean?
A
Like a good,
positive
like
one, though.
yeah, definitely a positive one. And I suppose, like I say, I just do still get peaks and troughs in terms of like body issues, image, that kind of thing. I'm always a person who has struggled that in that respect, without giving labels to things. And so throughout my life, it's always been something that people have felt free to comment on. And not always, people aren't always trying to be nasty. People are sometimes trying to come from a place of concern. And I'm very much now at a place where, yes, I still have my internal battles, but if it comes from an external place, I'm very much, unless I'm sitting on your face, my weight's no concern of yours.
Yes,
If
accurate.
you want to cut
Should
that,
we?
you can.
No. How old are you?
I'm 39,
Right.
so
So
I'll
we're
be
not.
40 next year.
I'm 36 this month. So we're not massively different in age.
Yeah.
So I imagine you grew up in the same age as I did, where heroin chic was how everyone wanted to look. It was skinny as hell. It was nothing tastes as good as
Bones.
skinny feels. It
Yes.
was, yeah, it
It
was
was,
that time period.
you look like you've put on a wee bit of weight. Don't know if the beef suits you,
Hmm.
you know, that kind of
It
thing.
was people being very comfortable commenting on how you
Yeah.
look, and that has screwed our whole generation.
Oh, it has absolutely screwed me from about the age of 12, maybe. I was a competitive swimmer up until I was 12, 13.
Wow.
I swam for City of Glasgow, and body was always spoken about. Weight, what you're eating, when you're eating, how much you're eating. And it gets to a point where you've no control over any of that. You're given it, and you've got to eat it, and that's it.
Mm.
And when I was a swimmer, I was about 6.5 stone. But when I fell pregnant with my second child, I was 6.5 stone. So I was getting seen weekly because of how small I was.
Yeah.
Um,
You're
and
you're
that
a petite person,
I
but
am.
that's very slim.
Yeah, and it's people might feel uncomfortable listening to that or hearing that. And it's not about me wanting to trigger people, but it's important to be honest and have open discussions about these things and not
Yep.
sweep it under the carpet because it may or may not make people feel uncomfortable because it's reality, it's my reality.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And when I'm on stage, when I'm Genevieve Strips, none of that matters.
Mm.
I'm not concerned about that. I'm the biggest exhibitionist in the house. Like, none of that matters at all.
Yeah.
Like, and that's my tiny wee slice of freedom away from that. And that's
I've
what burlesque
always like
gives me.
I think I've said online before, what is scary about performing is not the fact that I'm showing my body, it's the fact that I am showing people my art. Because
Yes.
that is comes from my head, it comes from my heart, my soul. Like I am putting
Yeah.
me on that
On
stage.
that
It's
stage.
not this.
This. No. No. Because we don't give
So
it,
yeah.
it's not about that. It's like I completely agree with you. It's what you it's an expression of who you are,
Hmm.
and that's a nerve-wracking thing. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
so
Like,
much scarier than just how you
mhm.
look.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I debuted and I was like, I was so worried. And my sister was like, "Oh, is it because you're going to be taking your clothes off?" And I was like, no. I'm like, it's because I'm like putting this out here, like this most authentic version of myself at that time. And what if it's shit? What if it doesn't translate? Do you know what I mean? But the body,
Yep.
even though, which seems for maybe might seem contrary Mary for a lot of people, that although I have these internalized issues that I deal with on a daily basis, the only time that don't need to deal with that is when I'm on the stage,
Mm.
when my body's moving. Do you know what I mean? All of that falls away, if that makes sense. So yeah,
No, it does. I 100% get that.
yeah,
Um, it's so obviously you've kind of indicated your kids are quite a wide age range. So
yeah,
you've obviously got some that are a bit older, kind of adults. Do
yeah.
they know what you do? Are they comfortable with what you do?
All of my children know what I do, even my youngest.
Nice.
All of my children know what I do. Um, I'm trying to have, I'm trying to be, what's the words? My biggest fear when I leave this earth is that I leave my children with trauma
Mm,
from how they were parented.
yeah.
And so, in order for me to maybe negate doing that, I have a very, very open relationship with them. And to be honest with you, not a lot of the people that I know agree with how I parent because
Okay.
I am so open with my children. Not folk so much in the burlesque scene, but people in my kind of outside life.
Hmm.
From that, I would never do that. And I'm like that's fine for you, but you know, I feel like I try to be quite as progressive as I can,
Yeah.
because I want my children to be able to come to me without, about anything, without fear of shame, without fear of judgment, without fear of, that I would love them any less. And for me, it was important for them to know what I do because a part of me wants them to be like, my mum can do this. So if my mum can do this and my mum's nearly 40, what can I do? Doesn't need to be within burlesque, but within any kind of sphere that they choose,
Yeah.
you know? And if they can see me, like my oldest daughter, who is 18, has seen me perform, and she's coming to see me perform on Saturday. And it's not weird for her at all, which I found quite. So I thought my daughter would be like, because my sons wouldn't watch me perform. My sons would be like,
Yeah.
no. Um, but I want my daughter to see that she can own her own person,
Mm.
that she can own a space that's hers, that her body is is her choice essentially, which I feel quite terrible saying because right now that's such a kind of cliched statement, and I don't mean to downgrade that at all or to for that to sound performative. Um, but it's so important for me, especially for my daughters, to see that they can be proud of what they put out in the world, that they can be proud and own their bodies, that their bodies are theirs and nobody else's. And if that's what they choose to do with it, then I'll be sitting at the sidelines clapping
Yeah.
and they'll have no shame for me because shame's such a massive thing, and I feel in all kids' lives at the minute, both male, female, non-binary, whatever kind of gender identity you choose, there's a lot of shame that children are feeling right now. Um, and I just want my kids to know that in my space, in my sphere, there's always space for them. There's no room for shame. That's
Do you
important for
have
me.
that do you have that same support from like your family?
Yeah, like my husband's is extremely supportive, bless his heart. Like he comes to as much as what he possibly can within the realms of kind of childcare
Yep.
availability, um, within the realms of kind of health, um, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm extremely lucky. Like Mr. Strips is fucking awesome.
Was
He
he the
gets.
one, did you pull him up in one of your acts?
Yeah, then I dry humped him and flogged him in front of everybody.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
that's Mr. Strips. Bless his soul. Like he's amazing. He's so supportive. My mum and dad, I don't think they're quite conservative, my parents.
Okay.
Um, so I don't think they would ever come and see me perform, which is
Mhm.
fine. But they're supportive. They'll always ask me, "How did your show go? How was things? Or let's see, did you take any photos, things like that, drive safe, that kind of thing."
Yeah.
But in terms of friends and family, like yeah, absolutely. Like my daughter-in-law comes to the shows with her family as well, when she can. So yeah, no, I'm very lucky in that respect. Very lucky in that respect. So yeah, yeah. Although
Like it.
I think with my parents, or I think it's that generation, I don't think they'll never see this, it's okay. I don't think that, I think parents of my parents' generation, so you're talking kind of very late 60s, I think a lot of them, the way they were raised very conservatively.
Yep.
And there was a place, and gender roles were far more solidified and, than, than what we have today. And don't get me wrong, I don't think they ever saw me as, I think that, they wanted me to do the kind of typical go to university and have a life and get married and then have children. I don't think that my life's progressed quite to the timeline that they were expecting. But it doesn't make them love me any less, I don't think. They never make me feel ashamed of what I do, you know. But I'm a pretty gobby cow, so if there was to be if there was to be a hint of shame, then I wouldn't be slow in making it known that I didn't appreciate that. So am I waffling?
No, well, this is great. I
Yeah.
was going to ask as well, you sort of hinted there at, not right there, a little earlier, that your kind of friends outside of burlesque are maybe, they're a bit like, oh, I wouldn't tell my kids I did this or that kind of stuff. So are your friends a bit more conservative outside of burlesque compared to like all of us in burlesque that are like quite
Yeah.
liberal?
But to be fair, burlesque encompasses so much of my world now. It's actually very rare that I see them. I have a couple of friends, like 4 or 5 kind of close friends outside of burlesque who know me inside out. They know exactly what I'm like, and they don't. I don't. Maybe I've done the wrong thing by saying my friends outside of burlesque. I'd rather maybe say name them acquaintances, people who
Okay.
know me or who have friends of friends, things like that. But the people who know me and know me well, I would say, some they do things differently from me. There's a lot of things that I do that they wouldn't do.
Yeah,
But they're just like, that's just Jen, you know. And if that's the way that Jen's going to be, or if that's what Jen chooses, then she knows what's best for her children.
good.
And I think that's the kind of attitude that I take with my other friends who have children. Like sometimes, somebody will say, "Oh, I did this, and what do you think?" And I'll be like, "Well, do you know what? It's maybe not what I would do, but if you find it works for you,
Yeah,
it's I suppose about respecting other people's parenting styles. As long as they're not telling me that they're scudding their children across the face, like you charge on and parent how you feel comfortable. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
that's suppose in the burlesque world there isn't as many parents.
yeah,
You know, but I
yeah,
I suppose so yeah, you've been performing for 2 years now,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
great. Uh,
Exciting.
what what do you think is like your biggest sources of inspiration for who Genevieve Strips
Ooh.
is and your acts?
In my act. So I suppose my biggest sources of inspiration are probably exploring sides of myself that maybe aren't obvious in the everyday.
Oh, okay.
Um, so, you know, I have my David Attenborough act, which is probably one of my most popular, um, because I'm a big believer in trying to delay climate change and um, looking after the planet and looking after ourselves and being at one with nature and not separate from it. But it's not obviously something that's obviously, I don't know if it's obviously noticeable about me. So that was quite important for me to when I did that one. Um, my Fet act was like, I suppose like I wanted something that was going to make me feel confident. And the mask, like, so I wear the mask with the big ears for that, the big bunny ears. And that's a massive part of it for me because I'm hiding behind it, but I'm also putting myself out there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And maybe taking a kind of sense of control in my life that sometimes I don't have. Because, with the kids, you very much a lot of the time you can be as organized as you can, but sometimes you've just got to go with the flow. Something's always going to crop up that you've got to then deal with that you're maybe not prepared to deal with, and that's difficult when you're neurospicy. And like, so yeah, like that was maybe an element of kind of taking control for me. Um, when you're good to mama, I call that my lazy act, and it's just because I've done it so much. Like it's like there's not really a concept behind it except that I fill the character quite well, type thing. Um, so yeah, probably areas in my life where I there's something that I want to explore or there's something that I want to I want to feel because with all of my acts I feel like if it means something to me it has if it has a message and the audience doesn't necessarily need to know what that message is, but if there's a message in there that means something to me, then I'm like, yeah, I need to do this type thing. So sometimes it'll start hearing a track and I'll be like, I have to dance to this, you know it's usually the music is where it begins for me. Um, or if there's like a concept that I have to fill, say for a student showcase, then I'll be kind of listen to the brief and then think, right, where am I going for there? What does this concept or this brief, where does that fit me? What does it mean to me? Type thing. So I'm putting my Pride Act together just now. And so the inspiration for my Pride Act is growing up queer, but not fully sitting comfortably in that queerness. And building up walls round about yourself because so hopefully people won't see, you know. Um, and so that's the kind of concept, and then obviously kind of growing into it type thing. So I only came out to my parents like 2 years ago. Just after I got into burlesque is when I first came out to my parents as a bisexual woman.
That
S-
because you came into burlesque and we're all like, "Ha, we're all queer."
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it gave me the confidence. Like, I didn't say to my mum, like, I've been with my husband a long time. So I didn't say to my mum that, oh, by the way, when I was in, when I was a teenager, I was with women or, things like that. Like, I never went into details with her. Not that you would, and she never asked me,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but burlesque certainly gave me the confidence that there was a safe space for me to be who I am. And I get a lot of questions about it from straight folk, if especially older straight folk, when they first find out about it. So I've had things like, do you just think that's a bit greedy? Or I've had, uh, so does that mean that you're a lesbian but you just settled for a man? I've also had, does that mean that you cheat on your husband with women? It absolutely blows my mind, you know. Um, and I've been monogamous with my husband for 22 years, you know.
Genuinely blows my mind that those questions are still be I haven't faced any questions like that in a long time. And it
Yeah,
blows my brain to think that people are still asking those questions. Because I'm very out as a bisexual woman as well, but I
yeah,
forget that straight people exist sometimes. I think
yeah.
because we move in such queer spaces,
I was about
I
to say,
gen
yeah,
yeah, like burlesque cabaret, I also do pole dancing. Fucking
yeah,
everyone's queer in pole
yeah,
dancing. It's it's very strange to me that straight people exist. I genuinely forget.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we, like you say, we move in those spaces so much. It dominates such a massive part of our lives. Do you know what I mean? That
Hmm.
you honestly do forget that. I think maybe the place I'm confronted with it most is hmm, probably, like school pickups and stuff like that. Usually I find
Mm.
at school, I don't get a lot of questions school pickup. I get a lot of questions about burlesque at school pickup. I get a lot of questions about burlesque at school pickup, especially from uh the mums. The
Yeah.
dads have not, yeah, the dads have never asked me a question, but the mums are always very interested. Um,
What kind of questions do you get?
so I get, where do you get your costumes? I get very much like how did you get into this? Is there classes for this? And I'm always
Hmm.
trying to give out kind of information, like, this is how you can access this. And but what I find is regardless of how many questions they ask, I'll promote the shows, they never come.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting. And sometimes I wonder to myself, is this a world that very much like myself before, that they didn't really realise existed and are now like, ooh, but maybe the confidence or the support network isn't there, and
It might be that you see it a lot, like straight couples at burlesque shows are awkward. And I wonder if it's they don't feel like they could ask their female friends, maybe, because that's
yeah, but I always find it's the women that are more into it.
yeah.
It's always the women that will come up and talk to me after shows. It's always the women that will come up and talk to me about it, and
Hmm.
whether that's just a passing, had a great night, loved the show, or whether they're asking kind of more questions or things like that. But it's always the women. And I look back now at when I first began, and I was like, I was genuinely one of those women that was like, how did I not know about this?
Yeah.
I've been so encapsulated in other areas of my life that this amazing safe space has always been there, and I'm just finding it. How did that happen? And it's honestly like, especially the spaces in Glasgow, polo, riding room, things like that, have really embraced me, do you know what I mean, and made me feel very safe.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I've ever had a time in ever. I don't think I've ever had a time in polo or riding room or the Monicas or any. I don't think I've ever had a time there where I've ever felt unsafe or out of place. And everybody there has always been very respectful. Um, and one of the things that I really appreciate about when the shows are run is that the dressing areas are very safe. Um, and like you're well looked after in that respect. So I really appreciate that because I've been in situations before where I have not felt that way, unfortunately. Um, and it's it's never made me question whether I want to continue or not, but it's made me think, right, how could I have changed that situation? I felt like here I was very naive because I've allowed this behaviour, whereas I should have called it out. But when you're very new, you worry about that as well because you think if I start calling folk out for behaviour that is absolutely unacceptable, like in any sphere, you know, I worried about getting cancelled, you know?
I'm 6.5 years in this game, and I did a post about Majestic Burlesque
Oh,
Festival
yeah,
recently, or Majestic International a few months ago. And I
yeah.
think I literally started the post with, ah, fuck it. Because
I
that's
remember
how
this post. I remember this
because I,
post.
because that was how I felt. I was like, "Do you know
Yeah,
what? Fuck it. This needs to be said."
yeah.
But even 6.5 years in the game, I
hmm
was like, am I going to get shit for calling this person out? Because
Am
they
I doing the
deserve
right
to be
thing?
called out.
Yeah, for all it's the
So,
right thing, it feels very uncomfortable.
yes. And I think sort of saying to yourself, oh, am I being naive? I think those first couple of years, like when I spoke to Baby Heart a few
Yeah,
weeks ago on this, we chatted a bit about it. Like, you are learning, and there's no real, you're having to rely on other people to tell you what the good shows are and what aren't, and then you're having to realize that you trust those people as well.
yeah,
And if you're new,
absolutely.
you maybe don't have the connections to know that yet, or
Yeah,
like again, because there's that fear, it's not like a more established performer is necessarily going to say, oh, don't do that show because of X, Y, and Z, because
uh-huh.
then they're putting their name on the line by giving you that
Exact,
advice. Like it's such a
exactly.
hard thing to navigate.
To be honest, though, that is something I have done. I'll be completely transparent about that. I have said to a very fresh performer who had asked me for advice on a specific show, and I just said, listen, this is my experience.
Yeah,
It would not be me. And I've got to a place now in not just in burlesque, I suppose, but kind of in my life where I'm like, I am too old for this shit. I don't have the brain capacity to deal with any more shite.
yeah,
So, and actually, I'd said to, who was it? I said, was it John, Mr. Strips, my husband? I'd said to him, I am at a stage now where I would rather just be cancelled completely than put up with bollocks behaviour.
yeah,
I am just done with it. I will not put up with it off of my children. I will not up with it off of a grown adult. Absolutely flipping not.
yeah.
And I'm so proud that this year I've managed to book really well, but book on my terms. If that makes
Good.
sense, without
Yep.
sounding booking on me. I don't. But I have only booked like the stuff that I'm like, yeah, I'd really love to do this, or I've had
Hmm.
really good feedback about this producer or this show. I'd really love to do this.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the way I want to continue because every show I've worked this year has been fabulous.
Good. That's
You
what you
know,
want. I think
I,
if
yeah,
if someone comes to me directly and says, "What about this show?" I'll give my opinion.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think that's the only thing that you can do. It's when you see people online posting about shows and you're like, but you're kind of like, I can't give you unasked
Solicited
for
advice.
advice.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But the problem with the shows that and this is just my personal opinion, but the problem I believe with these shows that are running the way that they're running in ways that maybe we now wouldn't tolerate is that there's always a fresh wave
Yep.
of new performers coming in, like
Yep.
myself back then,
Hmm.
you know, who don't understand. It's not that they don't understand, it's not that they're, but they've not had enough of the green flags to recognise the reds,
Yep.
you know.
You're
And
also
that makes me very,
hungry for,
yeah, for stage time. And that was me. Like, I wanted stage time regardless of what it cost me. Do you know what I
hmm
mean? I wanted as much time on stage as I could get. I wanted to make a name for myself in the Scottish burlesque scene. And a lot of the time, what I ended up feeling was deflated,
yeah.
defeated. I used to come away sometimes thinking, I'm better than this. And yet sometimes it then pulls you into a rut because you're saying to yourself, what am I not doing?
Mm.
You know? And I think that kind of knowledge is maybe would, if I'd have had it then, at least if I'd made those decisions, I could have said, right, well, Jen, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
You made these choices type thing. You had the information and you made these choices. Um, Unfortunately, at the time I didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and it, don't get me wrong, it was nothing that cost me majorly in terms of health. It cost me in terms of travel. It cost me in terms of energy. It cost me in terms, of everything else. It cost me kind of blows to my ego, which might not sound important, but it cost me blows to that self-confidence, maybe is the proper word.
Yeah.
And it had me questioning. Do you know what I mean? And then I just thought at the end of the year there, I'd just had enough. And I was like, well, I either take control of this or I walk away from it. And walking away is not an option, you know?
Obviously, there's the new, I think you're in it, the United
Yes, the
Kingdom
United
Burlesque
Kingdom
group.
burlesque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Seren set up. And I do think that that is a place where people can talk about, I'm
Hmm.
doing this show. Is that a safe show? Like, is there someone I can
Yeah,
talk to about this? And I think we are trying to be more transparent about that stuff. Um,
absolutely.
and I
And it's
think
so
that is what
important.
it's so important. It's what we need. And it's the same even as like talking about traveling and doing festivals. Like, there's
Yeah,
certain festivals that from chatting to people, I will not apply for.
yeah,
And there's other ones that I would, and there's ones that
yeah.
I have said to people I would not necessarily do that
Only
one.
do that.
But
Yeah,
like, so we're comfortable chatting about festivals on that scale, and I think we need to be more
yeah.
comfortable talking about shows on that scale as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will now, like, I will not give false information to any, or like a false opinion to anybody. Like,
Mm,
do you know what I mean? If a new performer was to ask me, or a younger, and because I feel, as patronising as this may sound, I feel very, very protective of the younger performers in my kind of circle. Part of that is because I'm a mum, part of it's because I'm older. But I do feel very protective of them.
mm,
Um, and I would like to think that they feel safe around me. Like, I would throw myself into a fire before I'd let somebody else get burnt.
mm.
That's it's my nature, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if somebody would, what should I look for? What should I not look for? You bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be saying, see if there's males in the dressing room that shouldn't be there, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
See if you're not getting paid, that's a red flag. Do you know what I mean? See if you go somewhere and you are not last, you do not feel heard, that's a red flag. If you go to a
Hmm.
dressing room and there's triggering conversation, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Because there's a time and a place in a professional environment, in my humble opinion, is not the place for that. Do you
No, I
know?
agree.
And I
I think
think,
that's the right conversations to have. And like, now you're saying you're 2 years in the game, you're looking after your kind of younger performers, but thinking back to when you started, did you feel like you were welcomed by the performers that were already in the scene. Pretend you're not talking to me and I'm not one of them. Um, I won't take offense.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
do you feel like the performers that were already here welcomed you guys as a
Yeah,
sort of a new wave?
absolutely, absolutely. Like, I've never went and had an experience with a more established performer on the scene where I have felt like less than.
Good.
You know, they like all of you guys have, have been willing to kind of share tips on like whether it's kind of costume mishaps. Like, I've had sea glass sewn safety pins and button hooks onto costumes for me last minute because they fell off. Like I did a show in February, Hijinks,
Yes.
and Gina Stirling was headlining.
Hmm.
I was absolutely papping my pants, mate. I was so flipping nervous to
She's
like
a
just
babe.
be in her space, and she is the most down to earth, loveliest human.
Hmm.
Like, she's no gatekeepy. She is willing to share, her experiences. She's willing to kind of give you hacks and tips and tricks. And, you know, I was up there and I was like, I'm really socially awkward. Like, you can tell I'm a waffler, waffle, waffle. And I was like, I'm sitting in this space with fucking Gina Stirling. But within like half an hour, we were sitting about taking our dogs out for the toilet. And I'm like, I'm talking about dog shit with Gina Stirling. What the actual fuck is happening here? So no, I have never met an established performer that has made me feel uncomfortable or less than. I've always felt really, really welcomed into the scene and really um embraced, I suppose, like, and supported as well. Supported. Do you know what I mean? I know in a lot of professions, like there's like a hierarchy, I suppose. Um, but I'm aware that obviously that there's different levels of ability, different levels of ability experience within burlesque, and different levels of how kind of established you are and how experienced you are and things like that. But I've never been treated like the apprentice, like the dog's body. I've never been treated as like being looked down the nose at type thing. I've always been treated with respect, and that's something that I really appreciate as well. Because I think I'd find that quite hard to cope with. Not only because it would be hurtful to my feelings, but maybe that says something about me, I don't know. But especially if it was somebody younger, I'd be like, that, really? Oh, your sounds went, I can't hear. Oh, there you are.
It was just me laughing,
Oh,
probably. I think for me as well, it's your we're colleagues
yeah,
as well, and you want to think that your colleagues respect you.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I know, like, if I had any issues in terms of if I was struggling with performance or if I was struggling with navigating a situation, I know I can come to you. I know I can go to Tootsie, I can go to Misbehave, I can go to Debbie. Do you know what I mean? There is a wealth of people here. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Even like Baby Heart, there's a wealth of people surrounding me that I can go to and be like, right, I need help navigating this. Because the last thing
Yeah.
I want to do is navigate something wrong and hurt people's feelings.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I ain't going to take shit either.
I love
Like,
that.
I, I'm
Love that
just,
about you.
I'm too tired now. I'm too
I'm
old.
always like, I say that, I'm like, I'm too old for this bullshit.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it just blows my mind how wonderful people in our space are. Do you know what I mean? And I know that
Like,
sorry, on you go.
I was just going to say they're good eggs.
Yeah, oh, I absolutely, absolutely. Like, I've never, I don't think I've ever experienced a group of people who have been so accepting of me, who I've
Mm.
felt comfortable being authentically myself with, and them just accepting that and being like, it's cool, Jen, you know? Like, and I'm like, really? But then that's a massive journey for me because sometimes I think to myself, Jen, you're nearly 40. Why are you not at that place in your life already? But I suppose that's just, my journey. I've spent a lot of my life people pleasing,
Mm.
a lot of my life people pleasing. And I'm sick of people.
Same.
I have like a select group that I really love. And then the rest, I'm like, oh man, I can't deal with people today.
That's
Like,
me. I'm like, oh, do I have to?
to
Do I
have to
have to?
people. Like a lot of the
Oh,
time, like I find me and baby will be like if we've done like quite a few shows in the kind of same kind of small period of time, we'll be sitting and she'll look at me and I'll look at her and the two of us are just like raging like and nobody wants to talk to us because we've just got pure raging faces. But it's a social battery as well. Like it's a social battery. Do you know what I mean? That takes a lot out of me, I suppose. And I'm still
yeah.
learning to navigate that. Like I'm learning every day.
So ma. Like if you crack that code, let me know. I just have a
Oh,
tendency of
same mate.
burning my yeah, I just burn myself out. It's fine.
Yeah. Honestly, like I am absolutely exhausted. Like that. So that week I had the flu. I did 3 shows that week, and I was just absolutely scunnered. But I
Yeah, no
wouldn't have
wonder.
pulled out of them because I
Mm,
love it so much. Like I and I hate letting folk down.
yeah.
I do appreciate obviously like illness and things like this, certain things that just can't be helped. But I'm like, right, Jen, you've got the flu, get over yourself. Like the next week, I was just like,
Yeah, you're doing dying for even longer.
oh, I was absolutely scunnered.
I wanted to ask your name, Genevieve Strips. I love it.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
So Genevieve actually comes from when I was maybe about 12 or 13. So I don't mind people knowing this. My full place, my Facebook is my real name. So my real name is Jen. My human name is Jennifer. And as the kind of years progressed, everybody calls me Jane. Everybody calls me Jane. But I had a friend in high school, and we're still friends to this day. She's an absolute maniac. And she used to call me everything under the sun. And she used to call me Jen, Jenny, Jennifer Bay. And then one day she started calling me Genevieve.
Yep.
And I always thought it was hilarious. And she'd jump out from behind walls and she'd be like, Genevieve. And so when I had to put my name together, I was like, I can't be just Jen. What can I be? And I was like, oh, Genevieve. And I didn't know what to put afterwards, but I wanted it to sound like a last name
Yeah.
type thing. And I was like, Strips. So yeah, Genevieve is is from way back when, like a long time ago.
I
And
love that though.
Strips
That's
is,
cute.
yeah, I wanted it to sound like a last name because I was really worried about picking it.
Mm.
And I didn't know how to pick it or how to put it together. And that just kind of seemed to fit naturally for me. So that's where it came from. I
It's a good name. It's a good name. And on that note, how is it that our lovely, sorry,
no, you find it.
uh,
Take your time.
how can our lovely watchers and listeners find you on all of your sociables?
So I am on Instagram at can't do this at Genevieve Strips, essentially. At Genevieve Strips, that's it. That's kind of where you find me. I'm not a massive poster, because of time constraints, and I don't tend to sit like I'm massively terrible with technology. Um, like see what you're doing right now with microphones and all that. That is my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how to set up my Zoom call. So I pressed on it and I went to type in my name and I put Genevieve Stop and I had to leave the meeting and rename myself.
You got here, it's fine. It's fine.
So, like I tend to do like I'll do stories and things like that. Posts are kind of less regular and I find it hard to build a following online because
Mm.
maybe because I don't really understand algorithms and all this stuff that runs behind it. Like I've got no clue. I'm just like, okay, I'll post this today. Hashtag burlesque.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Well, now
Right.
those now lovely people that are listening can hopefully give you a follow.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. But we like to think we're a wee safe space.
We are. We
For
are. No,
sure.
but
For
thank
sure.
you. Thank you so much for coming on and being so vulnerable and honest.
Well, thank you for having me.
I really appreciated it today. So thank you so much. And
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's greatly appreciated, and I hope that it'll maybe give one of the school mums a wee boost, or somebody who's fresh, brand new, who's a mum, a bit of perspective,
no,
and if they need.
I'm really sure that it will. But thank you so much for joining me,
No,
Genevieve, and
thank
hopefully I
you.
will see you very soon.
See you soon, my lovey.
Bye.